Today's episode is all about ancient and future technologies. Now, before you change the channel because you came here to see art, let me make something clear. Exhibitionists always brings the art. But today we're also going to show you what happens when two areas of thought that are usually defined in opposite camps, art in one and technology in the other, come together. You'll see how an ancient system of measurement is still walking the runway, how cryptocurrency gets locked into a sculpture, and one artist's idea on how death might happen in space. This is CBC Arts Exhibitionists.
Ceramics, it's so permanent. It's so once you finish a piece, it could last thousands of years. I like this contrast. Technology is so ephemeral and fast moving, so I'm really interested in this play on taking something like technology that is so changing and kind of solidifying that aspect of it into a permanent object. I had a series where I made Bitcoin wallets inside of my sculptures. On the outside is the public key, which you can see how many Bitcoins are in the piece. And then the private key is carved inside the sculpture. So essentially, if you wanted to remove the Bitcoin, you would have to smash the piece. If a person was to purchase my work, if they care more about the value of the piece or of the value of the Bitcoin. So I did a luster firing yesterday. I'm just gonna open it up. Look at this guy. So I did these eyes in the back, a charcoal ice cream and a charcoal mask. So this is part of another piece. I'm gonna be adding components to it. It's kind of about charcoal food trends and how silly some of them are. My figures are always slumped or bored or really involved with their devices. Everyone's just so engrossed with their own lives on their phone that I just find it interesting. That's kind of like how we progressed as a society. I'm in the last generation to experience life pre-internet. I guess in the future, I'll just be continuing to work with these themes and how technology is further becoming integrated into our lives and into our bodies. It's just interesting to think of the potential of where it's going to take us in the next few years.
You know, every once in a while, I get a little freaked out by how far into the future we're going. With laptops and tablets and cell phones, we've all become these slouchy technology golems obsessed with our precious screens. So right now, let's go back into some ancient technologies. The Italian mathematician Luca Pacioli once said, "Without mathematics, there is no art." The golden ratio is the perfect example of this. It's a mathematical ratio that was documented in antiquity and has been used in architecture, design, and art, and it shaped our very definition of beauty. It was used centuries ago by Leonardo da Vinci, and it's used today by one Canadian fashion designer in fascinating ways. Take a look.
Uh-oh. This is gonna be really bad. I might have to do this a few times. Okay, yeah, so this is a human body. And so I'm gonna just show you golden ratio found in the body in a very simple terms. A, B. This plus this divided by the long side is equal to this divided by this. That's what makes them in golden proportion. I'm Sid Neigum. I'm a women's wear designer from Alberta, Canada. I grew up in a very small town in Alberta, 6,000 people. Once I graduated, I moved to Edmonton, and I was studying science and math because there was no fashion or art in Drayton Valley. Out of school, like, I was doing a Bachelor of Science, which would have been like my pre-med. But, so my parents weren't too pleased about the change.
Now they're pleased,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Now they're cool, but yeah. My dad was like, what the f? I think I was just naturally into math and science. I think that'll always be a through line through every collection because it sort of ties it all together. I think what I love about pattern making the most is that it's very tangible, and you can sort of, as you're creating flat patterns, you can see them come to life. The love of math comes in because you're constantly having to use numbers in pattern making, measurements constantly. Obviously, it has to fit specific measurements of a body, so you're playing to that, and then you can also bring in other elements, so golden ratio, for example. So this ratio is found throughout the body, not just in this area, but in arms, legs. So this proportion is so common in the body that bringing it into the garments, I find, just sits well. So this pattern is what I just cut, actually. This is the top, high point shoulder to waist. On this piece is 16 inches. And this is the skirt bottom. So this is the waist seam, center back, center front, so right here. So this is essentially here, yeah? So this number, 16 divided by 1.618, is 9.88 inches, and that's the measurement of here. So like these are in golden proportion, just as like our body is in golden proportion. So I find that visually, we're sort of kind of striking a symmetrical chord, I guess, yeah. So this is a piece like inspired by packaging design. It kind of looks like this when it's spread out. And then it's pleated, and then it's folded along this line. And boning is sewn in, and this section is sewn to this section, and this section is sewn to this section, which is sort of similar to the idea of like packaging design in the sense that you use one piece of material to fold up and create one, in this case, package, but in this case, garment. See, your typical fashion designer here. That's like how I sketch garments, like that. I never sketch like three-dimensional, like on figure. I always sketch it flat first as a pattern, and then create the pattern and see how it looks on the body. You know, I'm not the only one using this principle, but I'm one of the only ones using it for fashion. And yeah, I just think it really makes sense.
Hello, my name is Manuel Galarneau, and I'm an artist based in Montreal City. And I'm glad to be your exhibitionist in residence this week. I make cheap lo-fi experimental visuals, sometimes borrowing elements from the primitive and dysfunctional technology I grew up with. I like to play around with both traditional and modern animation techniques. The following things have been said about my work. Nice. Awesome. Dude! What the f is this? Why did I just watch a spider poop? Oh, and also, here's a bunch of artists I'm inspired by. The video you're about to watch was made for the band Bait Market for their song Yako. And to create it, I've mixed different liquid footage together and really had fun doing the whole thing. And I hope you like it. Enjoy!
What if you could live your final moments in outer space? Coming up, this artist shows you what it could look like. There are a lot of different ways people choose to leave this world. You can be sent out to sea in a traditional Viking funeral. You could have your ashes turned into a tree with the biodegradable urn. Or you can go out with one last thrill on the euthanasia roller coaster. Yeah, that's a real proposal. This next artist is imagining a more intergalactic possibility for your final rites. Take a look.
My name is Wallace Gillard. I'm a visual artist and educator in Sudbury, Ontario. Coppercliff for me is really home. I grew up here. I spent all of my time here as a young child, and in my later years found myself drawn back to coming to Coppercliff. I don't have a really significant attachment to the industry itself, other than the fact of knowing it's always been around us. But what I really have been drawn to is the regreening efforts that have been happening over the years. It's not the same as when I was a child, and even more different so from when my parents were children in this area. The Astro Greenhouse project really came to be just through my experience of watching funerary services in sci-fi movies. This is a project about the terminally ill going to space and getting to have their last moments out there. It gives them the opportunity for one last adventure. Unlike we've seen in every representation of sci-fi funerals, it's usually the deceased who are sent off into the cosmos. But this idea twists that a little bit, and instead we're actually sending people who are still alive and breathing into space. So instead of just having final rites here on planet Earth, they will be having their final rites being sent off into the universe. And the luxury of this is that there's no longer a burden on this person to any earthly body. They are really on their own, taking that last adventure in their final breaths to potentially be something greater for humankind. When they die, their body becomes the soil and the fertilizer used to transition the pod into a greenhouse. Plants will grow in the pod and continue to grow for decades to come. I'm developing this into a graphic novel that will follow the story of 3 characters on their journey into the cosmos. The greenhouse is the opportunity to not just have your ashes planted on the moon. It's the opportunity to quite literally start life on a planet that has the necessary resources that our planet has here on Earth. With that, it's really giving individuals the chance to maybe be the reason existence happens elsewhere in the cosmos.
Coming up, need some hypnotic videos to lessen the pain of being human? I've got you covered.
When you look at a screen, you're looking at this other world. They've become these portals that we literally live through. There is definitely something relating to, an experience of the mind, some things that's not super rational. My name is Nicolas Sassoon. I'm a visual artist based in Vancouver. My practice revolves mainly around digital animation and video projection. I've always been drawn to a type of imagery or images or artworks that really create this magical moment where you look at them and you're transported somewhere else, but you're also sort of baffled by how it was possibly made. You can ask yourself, how is it made, but you don't have the answer, and eventually what takes over is more the experience of the work rather than how it's made. I work with this very simple overlapping of two images. It's something that's really close to analog animation in a way. I don't use coding, I don't use programming, I do everything by hand. I stretch things, or I change the speed, I change the motion, and through these different experimentations, I reach at some point a result that I find to be a good result. One of my favorite installations I've done in the city was the wallpaper exhibition at the Vancouver Art Gallery. This is a collaborative project with 3 artists. So myself, Sylvain Sailly, another artist from France, and Sarah Ludi, an artist based in Chicago. One of the other highlights was the exhibition I did last year called Index Avenue Skylight. I produced an exhibition referencing a lot of underground venues in Vancouver that have either shut down or are not operating anymore. You have a history of spaces in Vancouver that have sort of popped off and disappeared. I found that there was something really beautiful about how these spaces exist in a collective memory. It's almost a little bit like mythologies or tales that people would tell each other, and they add their little part to it. Nurturing hobbies is really key to me to sort of keep a curious mind. Coming out here and just working on the garden, planting stuff or weeding or doing anything that involves taking care of the garden it's super grounding. It's a nice complement to being in front of a laptop for 10 hours a day. It's really good for that. So we're at Deep Blue, a studio space and event space in Vancouver, which has been around for 5 years now. I've been here all week, setting up 4 different projections in this main space. One interesting thing is how people interact with projections. There's always that moment where people enter the space, they go in front of the projection, and then they start playing with that. It's really kind of like being a caveman and having a torch and seeing your shadow and playing with your shadow. There's something really sort of visceral and primitive about it, I think. Participating to that underground culture has been so meaningful to me. Electronic music venues in Vancouver, they sort of create a balance in my life. Spending 10 hours a day on a computer, it's really heavy. I need these moments where I can just sort of let go of all that.
I think we should spend less time reading depressing news headlines and more time getting hypnotized by mesmerizing portals. But that's just me. We've gone from ancient mathematical formulas to space death to flashy screens. And to close out our show, here's a piece of technology I've always wanted to try. a pottery wheel. This is your step-by-step guide on how to make a bong. You can thank me later on Twitter. Tune in next week for another whirlwind guide of the Canadian art scene. Peace.
Hi, I'm Christian, co-founder of High Art Head Shop with Richard. Today we're going to show you how to make a ceramic bong. So to throw a bong, first we have to wedge some clay, center it, open it, and lift it on the wheel to make the body of the bong. Then we throw the neck, throw the bowl, and we throw the down stem. So once we have all the pieces, we assemble them into a bong. So first we attach the down stem, and with some coiling, we blend it into the body of the bong. And lastly, we attach the neck onto the top of the bong. We drill a hole into the bowl, and it's ready for the first firing. So once we've fired it for bisque, it's ready to glaze, and there's many different ways that we can glaze bongs. We paint them by hand, spray them, and once it's been glazed, it's ready for the last firing. And that's how you make a bong.